Hey, it's Maddie, and welcome to another episode of Estate Sale Baby. Thank you, as always, for tuning in. You know, it's almost Christmas holiday time, so I hope you're sticking in there. There actually were a pretty good amount of sales, I thought, this weekend, which was surprising. Last year, there was just one sale. There were actually a few to choose from. Only one, big sale. That sale that you might have seen, which had some mid-century modern furniture and then just some, random vintage stuff. Anyway, I think this will be the last episode I'll do before January, which is kind of crazy. I probably won't release a episode next week, and I wanted to use this time to just kind of talk about some of my favorite estate sales from this past year and some New Year's resolutions. One of my New Year's resolutions is to more regularly put this show out, which I know at first I was like every Thursday, and then I sort of started slipping just based off of other stuff. And then it's also been, I love learning new stuff, but it has been a little bit of a challenge just to figure out technically how to do everything. And anyway, boring stuff. But anyway, I'm hoping that, in the new year, I'll be a little more regular with this show. Okay, well, so before we get into some highlights from estate sales I went to this past year, which I was just looking through my camera roll and I was really getting very almost emotional looking at all the estate sales that I went to. I did want to talk about the Martha Stewart book, which I had mentioned a couple of times on previous episodes, which is this Best of Martha Stewart Living Handmade Christmas. And I did order it from eBay. I think it was $5. But anyway, I had talked about potentially doing one of the one of the handmade Christmas things in this book, and boy, can I not. I kind of get why people are a little upset, because these are pretty hard. These are very hard. The funniest one that I saw was a way to take an acorn and make it a small box, which I thought was just insane. And I don't even know where to find an acorn just generally, and then what you would put inside the box. But basically it was step by step. You take the top off of the acorn, then you take out the filling of the acorn, then you sand the inside of the acorn, and then you stain the acorn, and then you have a little trinket box. But I don't what would you put in that? I'm not sure. And I was Googling it, and I didn't see anything online about people doing this. So I think that's a Martha Stewart original, which is insane. But anyway, I loved it. It's just funny because when I ordered the book, I thought it would be kind of fun DIY culture stuff, but it's hardcore. This is how you make a tapered candle. This is how you make your own wreath. Very intense stuff. And this year I was not I was not in an intense handmade mood, but very cool stuff in there. I'm making fun of it, but I actually think it's very cool. But the acorn trinket box is that's the funniest one by far. The funniest one. Just me foraging for acorns to make small boxes out of is, interesting. Moving on to some of the estate sales this year. And hopefully if you've been, part of the estate sale journey that I've been on with me, you probably remember some of these, or you were at these sales. So that's kind of fun. But I made this huge list of stuff, and I was looking through my camera roll and just reminiscing and everything. And it was a good year. It was a good year for estate sales. And it's so funny because every time I go into an estate sale, it's shocking how unique it is. It's just shocking. I always think oh, this is the last cool estate sale I'll ever go to. They'll never surprise me like this one did, and it just always gets topped. Okay, so getting into sales from this past year that were very memorable for me and on my, top sales list. The first one was in Alexandria. This was an apartment. This apartment complex, I think it's the Watergate condominium. It has lots of estate sales constantly. But this sale was especially memorable. It was a time capsule kind of sale. So the whole house was very 1960s. It had lots of that like almost tinfoil wallpaper, so lots of shiny wallpaper, including on the ceiling, which is, I love when I see that. And in the bathroom, there was a stack of magazines about the royal family from over time, which was hilarious. And in one of my videos that I made about it, I was touching the magazines and someone commented, this is one of my favorite comments I've ever gotten. Someone commented, "You're being real casual about touching those bathroom magazines." Or something like that, which I thought was so funny. But anyway, I love the idea of someone staging a sale and being like, you know where these magazines about the royal family should go? They should go right on top of the toilet for people to look through. Like, I think that's so funny. The next sale was in Tacoma Park. These are actually in, I think, chronological order. So this was in Tacoma Park. It was a small house. There aren't a lot of sales in Tacoma Park, and I love Tacoma Park. When I was in school at GW, I thought that Tacoma Park was like where I wanted to live, basically, because it's got such a just kind of nice vibe. It's got a lot of historical houses, and it feels kind of neighborly. I don't know. Anyway, so Tacoma Park, there was a house that was really cozy, and it was during a snowstorm. And I almost didn't make it out to the sale because I was a little bit nervous because it had actually snowed, actually a lot of snow. But anyway, I went, and it was just like this cute, beautiful little house, and they had all this blue pottery. And that was the first time that I realized that a lot of people like blue pottery. A lot of people like blue pottery. Not blue and white, just straight blue pottery. And they had a baby plate. They had a plate that said baby plate on it that I still think about, that I love. I think it had Peter Rabbit on it. So anyway, that was one of them, and I remember that feeling very like winter wonderland-y, so that's a memorable one. The next sale was in Bethesda that I remember, and that's where I was introduced to a piano shawl that I will never forget. And this piano shawl looked like it belonged in a museum. It's one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen in real life, and I know I made a huge deal about this piano shawl online, so hopefully you got to see it in person. But it was absolutely gorgeous, just like woven. They said that it might have been part of something for a church. It had a very church vibe to it, and it was just like, I mean, it almost looked medieval. It was so cool. And I didn't know piano shawls were a thing, so that was really neat. Moving on, there was a sale in Colesville, Maryland. I don't know why I'm naming these locations, but maybe this will jog your memory if you went to any of these. There's a sale in Colesville, Maryland, and it had a 90s witch vibe that I was really into. And this house was so packed with stuff, and it was such an interesting sale. I think a lot of people went to the sale for the Y2K purses. There was a whole room full of boxes of purses. But what I was really intrigued by was that the basement was full of costumes, which was insane. Like, you know, costumes you get at a costume store, like still in the bags and everything. Just so many costumes. The next one is there was a house in DC, and hopefully you guys remember this one, where the basement was basically a bookstore. Like the whole house was just kind of a normal old looking sale, like vintage sale. I shouldn't have said old, but vintage sale. And in the basement, it was, just a bookstore, like stacks. They had stacks of books, and they were coded and everything. And I don't know who that person was. I didn't actually look into it, but they had an incredible book collection. And I always love seeing the people who love books at sales, because they are intense people. Like, people that love vintage books are very knowledgeable, and they'll just go through, like, people were just going through the whole stacks and looking inside the books and stuff. That was great. I love when you go into a basement and you're like, what is this? This is insane. And that was one of those moments. The next sale was an Arlington sale of an ad executive. And this was fun because this person was not only an ad executive, but like loved advertising, loved it. You could tell from the house. Like there was just like a random magazine ad just on the stairwell, like that kind of thing. Like every room you went into, there was some kind of old ad, which I thought was really neat. The next one was in Travilla, and I think a lot of good sales are out in Travilla. If you ever see a Travilla sale, I would go. It's in Maryland. It's near Glenstone, and it's got a lot of very fancy houses, in my opinion, or just maybe even more than fancy, like eccentric is a good way to say it. So this Travilla house was the house of the artist, and you guys loved the sale. You loved it. And it was, the artist was just rooms and rooms and rooms of her art, and it was very pop art. And then in the basement, they had mannequins that she had done as like an art installation that had clothing on them. And going into the basement, the stairwell was like a rainbow exploded. Like it was just like a rainbow staircase. I don't know. It was, the whole house was gorgeous. She had hand painted a lot of the walls. So like the kids' room was the Birth of Venus, I believe, painted on the walls. Just incredible. The whole house was just insane. I love when people make their houses like really an extension of themselves. And that was one where I was like, I'll never see this again in my entire life. Moving on to the Shaw Marilyn Monroe house. This is definitely one of my top sales this year. This house was in Shaw. The outside of it, there was a big portrait of Marilyn Monroe. And the inside of this house was full of like that 90s sitcom memorabilia and like 50s, 60s mod stuff. And the house, notably, it had a room for Barbies that the curtains were always closed to keep the Barbies away from the sunlight. That was really neat. Also, something else, they had a giant Swatch watch, which I know one of my followers bought, which was really neat. And then I think I didn't say this, but my favorite part that I learned from that house is that the backyard was really cool. It was very like, clearly it was a place that this person made to like entertain in, but apparently that backyard used to connect to the neighbors' backyards because a bunch of friends, including this person, owned these row homes, and they opened up their backyards to be one big backyard to hang out in. And they had since closed the backyards, like now they're individuals. But anyway, I thought that was really neat to think about there being a time in that Shaw neighborhood where like all the backyards were connected and made this really cool like entertaining space. The DC Colorama mansion sale. This was the most surprising video that I made this year was the DC Colorama mansion sale, because I went to this sale and the house was this giant, like almost Baroque, I guess, style mansion. And it was over the top. It's the most over the top sale I've ever been to. And it felt like you were in Europe or something. It was insane. And when I went to the sale, I was like, wow, people on the internet, they're going to lose their minds when I show them this. They're going to love this. This is insane. I can't believe you get to walk around this house. And let me tell you, no one cared. Like, no one cared. When I posted that video, I was like, okay, they do not like this. They're not interested in this in any way, shape, or form. I thought that house was so cool. I mean, it was over the top, and, maybe people don't care about it because I think, there was some stuff that you could buy reasonably, but obviously a lot of it was like very, very expensive stuff. But anyway, I thought it was so cool. In the basement, they had basically like a tavern down there. But I'm telling you, like, everything about that house, you felt like there's no way this is like in America. This seems so old. And I think, don't quote me on this, but I think it was like a department store family's home, like an old school department store family from DC. But anyway, I loved that sale. I loved walking around that, and let me tell you, you guys did not like that sale. You did not care about it at all, which is so funny. Another DC sale that was a highlight for me was the Mount Pleasant, I'll call it Peace Corps sale. I believe the person was in the Peace Corps or some kind of foreign service, but it was an incredible sale. The house was in just untouched condition, so it was really cool to see a DC row home like that. You don't generally get to see those. Also, in Mount Pleasant, there were only a handful of sales this past year, maybe like 3 of them. So that was really neat. And this person's collection just was from all across the world. So it was great. I love when I get to learn about new stuff. I learned a lot about the pottery at this sale and where it was from, which I just adore learning new stuff like that. Okay, the last two I'll mention, another Trivia Mansion, that actual mansion sale with the grotto in the basement. That was insane. That sale was insane. I'm sure if you've been following me for any amount of time, you probably know about this sale. That was like the mansiony sale, and you were allowed to just like run around the mansion, and the whole time you're like, how is it possible that we're allowed to do this? And that's when I did the apple dance in the basement grotto, which was so cool. That was peak apple dance time. So anyway, that was incredible. The last sale is the Falls Church NASA sale. And this sale was pretty special. And I'll just say, like, one of my favorite things about doing videos about estate sales and this past year has really been connecting people to their interests almost. Like, I loved that I could post that NASA video and people who love NASA saw it and then they went to the sale and they bought NASA stuff. I think that's so cool. I love when that happens. I know there was another sale that I didn't go to, but I posted about, which was like an FBI sale, and like FBI agents went to it and bought FBI stuff, I guess I heard. So like, I love that. I love when items can really like get into the hands of people who are going to love them. That makes me so happy. So that was so fun this year. It's been so fun. And I love, again, when people just are really into stuff, like they have something that they're particularly into. I find that like so fun and just lovely. So anyway, that's my list of sales and some of my thoughts about them. And hopefully you went to a couple and, you know, that also jogs your memory. Just in terms of final remarks and stuff I've been thinking about for New Year's resolutions. So I know I talked about at the beginning of the episode, just getting more into the rhythm with this show. I love doing this show, and I hope that I can get better at producing it and faster and can be more consistent for you guys, so you know when to tune in rather than just kind of dropping stuff randomly every week. Another New Year's resolution of mine is to learn more, and I love learning. I love taking classes. I mean, I went to school for like a long time and, you know, was getting my PhD and then didn't do it, but like, that's how much I love classes. I just wanted to go to classes forever. So I want to get more knowledge in terms of like interior. I know I've mentioned this before, but in terms of like items, interior design, you know, just more and more knowledge to help you guys and like to better communicate stuff at sales. Sometimes I wonder, just when I walk into a sale, I would love to be like, this is the style. But that being said, I'm so thankful for this past year and all the stuff I've learned, all of the estate sale companies and people who work at the estate sale companies who spent time explaining what stuff was to me, explaining like the style of things, meeting people who are, you know, appraisers or dealers who could explain just little intricacies about how stuff's made or how you would, you know, identify something or what style something's in has been so great. So great. I feel so lucky to know that information. And I feel like part of making these videos and going to estate sales has been learning a lot more, which is my favorite thing in the world, is to like learn more. So anyway, on top of that, I just wanted to say, as a final thing, that I'm so thankful for this past year. I'm so thankful. I've had, just so much fun. I've loved meeting you guys. I've loved meeting especially a lot of people who are into estate sales also, and that's been really fun to connect with people. And I feel like just really lucky to have just a little community around this. So that's been great. And I appreciate all the time that you've listened to me or watched my stuff. I really appreciate it. So anyway, with that, that has been an episode of Estate Sale Baby. Thank you guys so much. I hope you have a great holidays. I'll talk to you in January. Bye.